and welcome to Monte Carlo to Marlow. This podcast is sponsored by the Marlow Living Loyalty app. So welcome, Isaac, to Monte Carlo to Marlow. Explain to us, because there are some people that might be watching this on video, where you are, because I just said you're in the most glamorous looking apartment in Paris.
Right. So this is the Simrise office at, we call it the l'appartement étoile, because right in front is Place de l'Étoile, which of course is the Arc de Triomphe.
Amazing.
So we have two offices. The other office is much more kind of, we have robots and things. It's kind of crazy science. But I like to come here because it's a bit quieter and then you can really focus on your creations.
You're really working with robots?
Absolutely. Yes. So we have actually one robot which can weigh we weigh fragrances, right, to smell them. So I can actually weigh several fragrances at the same time. So when I come here, I come with my assistant, Alexia. And so she's weighing things manually like we've always done since forever. But at the other office, actually a robot does a lot of the work.
And has the robot got a name?
Freaker. No, I think it's actually changed since then. Because we used to have a German robot, and I think it's a French robot now.
That's hilarious. So I learned of your amazing story with the launch of the Agnes B perfume that you've just literally launched now, that I don't know how long you've been working on it for. Can you tell me about how that collaboration came around and about the process of working with Agnes?
Right. So, I mean, this was like a really special project, I think, because it's not every kind of launch where you get to work with a founder. So, of course, she's iconic. And we did the fragrance together. So first of all, of course, we had to meet each other because this creative process can take over a year. So if you don't like the person, good luck. So we had a kind of meet and greet, and actually we really clicked. She's got this like super charisma and she's so creative. She has that kind of creative energy where, some people, they just can't switch it off. So she's, really energetic, and it was just like an amazing encounter. And then that was the starting point. And it was, it was a journey where we kind of started off thinking we knew where we would end up, and it ended up going somewhere else. But it was just, a beautiful place to land in the end. Because, we started basically with a tuberose, a
I was going
soliflor.
to
So
say,
it
what was the
yeah.
initial inspiration? Did she come to you with something that said, I love this
What-
flower, or I love this scent?
Right. So first of all, I kind of came up with a few different propositions, but I knew I kind of had a tip. I knew that she loved tuberose. That's her favorite flower. So that's where we started. I just kind of expected us to launch a tuberose fragrance, maybe a modern take on a tuberose. And then as the project continued, there was changes in the seasons, and every time we would meet, she would come with a new flower which she had in her garden. So the monoflor tuberose started to become a bouquet. And then actually a lot of the fragrances we created here actually in this office. But so one time she came with Syringa in French, which what is it called again in English? It's a flower in springtime, and it's only in blossom for maybe 2 weeks. It's Syringa in English. Oh my goodness. See, we don't have these flowers in New Zealand. That's why.
No, and I should know that because I do know a bit of French because I have a place in the south of France, and
Oh,
so
nice.
I should know it. If I saw it, okay, I'll look it up and we'll put it in the show notes so people know what we're talking about.
But and that was kind of a turning point in the whole creation of the fragrance, because basically Syringa is a kind of unusual flower to be using in a fragrance. We don't have the essential oil or the absolute, so I had to do an accord. And it has this almost a fruity strawberry kind of side to it, but at the same time, it's really opulent. So in the end, that kind of became the heart of the fragrance. And and of course, it was a journey. And in the end, we ended up launching 2 perfumes as well, which
I
wasn't,
know. I'm wearing one
planned.
today. I felt like I needed to be wearing it as I was talking to you.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And with you say working with Agnes, and it's celebrating 50 years as well, isn't it? So
Right.
it
I
has.
mean, again, it was kind of a little bit stressful at some point because she is so iconic. So, the fragrance had to be perfect, basically. So, it had to kind of live up to her up to her world.
of very classic and timeless fashion. So again, there's that pressure to
Right,
create this kind of
absolutely.
fragrance as well, and
Right,
to appeal to.
absolutely timeless. I think kind of, easy to wear, but definitely she's got her own style. So it's quite, yeah, really, it was kind of, there was a bit of pressure there to create something really amazing.
Yeah. Well, I think it's beautiful, and I am super fussy. I guess every woman is, but we've all got our own different tastes. But I want to go back to your story about how you started working in fragrance because it's an unusual story, and that you're sat in Paris where most people think that lots of fragrances are created, but actually you're from New Zealand, and can you remember the first fragrance that you actually smelled that sort of turned your nose, that made you think, this is it? I love fragrance. I wanna work in it.
Yes, I mean, the first fragrances I smelled were the ones my mother wore. I remember she wore a private collection from Estee Lauder, but it wasn't actually necessarily perfumes as such which got me interested in perfumery. It was actually the olfactive world in general. Taking the school bus and smelling the wild ginger blossoms. My mother had an amazing garden, so I'd always just be not necessarily smelling perfumes, but smelling everything. So I think it was quite subconscious, just a kind of subconscious curiosity, you could say. And then, it was not something I was doing deliberately, but when I was a teenager, I started collecting fragrances. And just because I loved it, there was no reason behind it. It was kind of impulsive. And then after doing that for a few years, I had this one day, it was my eureka moment where I had all of my collection in front of me. And I thought, hold on, if all of these perfumes exist, then someone must do that. That must be a job. And I was like, whoa, because it had just never occurred to me.
How old are
So
you
that's
then, do you think? You remember?
yeah, I think I must have been 17.
Okay.
So, and I was kind of, it was a eureka moment because I was kind of shocked that I hadn't thought about it before. It seemed so obvious.
Yeah.
And at that point, of course, being in New Zealand, it's not like you can really, there's not a perfume industry as such. It's really, really French. So Grasse, Paris, and then you can be a perfume in Brazil or in New York, but it's not in New Zealand. So I thought, what can I do just to kind of get involved in perfumes. So I ended up calling kind of every pharmacy and department store in Auckland, where I'm from, asking for a job so that I could just basically sell perfumes. Because I thought, okay, I won't be able to create them, but at least I'm going to be surrounded by
Yeah, get in the
something I love.
industry somehow. Yeah. So you actually started off working selling perfume?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, it was just amazing because I was working in a department store called Smith and Coe's, and often it was actually quiet. So you might not have a customer for, let's say, half an hour. So I would have half an hour just to smell all of the perfumes.
You were
So
in.
after doing yeah, and another cool thing about that department store is that they had all of the perfumes on one counter. So even though you had, let's say the makeup from Clinique, or you'd have like specific counters for the makeup, but all of the perfumes were in the same place. So I would, even if Clinique makeup was there, I'd have the Happy, for example, on my
Yeah.
stand. So it was basically like I got paid to be in a playground all day.
Amazing. And then not many years afterwards, because you were really young, you decided to
Right.
go to Grasse to study. And what was it, 19 that I read that you went to Grasse?
Right. When I first came to France, I was 19. And that's another story in itself. So after maybe a year selling perfumes, I thought, I really want to be more on the creative side, but you can't do that in New Zealand. And I was looking on the internet and people were saying that you need to study chemistry, but other people were saying, you don't have to study chemistry. And I was ready to spend, 3 years getting a degree, but I thought, just before I jump into studying chemistry for 3 years, I want to be 100% sure that I have to. Michael Edwards, who's a fragrance expert, was in New Zealand giving a conference, and I wasn't invited because I wasn't important enough, but my boss was. And I wrote a quick note to Michael Edwards saying, "Oh, should I study chemistry or not?" And I gave it to my boss, and she passed it to him. And actually, the next day, he came into the department store and in person and said, "Hey, are you Isaac? I got your note."
That's so sweet.
And he said, "Honestly, I don't want to give you secondhand information. if you want to find out if you really have to study chemistry or not, go to this conference in Grasse, in the south of France, obviously, in a few months' time, and then you'll be able to speak to people who will actually give you a proper answer. So I managed to, get a little bit of change, spare change off my
Yes,
dad
I
to
can
pay
see
for
you
the
were a
flight.
knapsack. Off you go.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, my dad did kind of fund the ticket, and then of course I turned up at Grasse at this conference a few months later, and when Michael saw me, he couldn't believe it. That just this random conversation with some kid in New Zealand, and he actually turned up. So straight away he started introducing me to people, and there's a famous perfumer, a Dutch perfumer called Martin Graaf. Of course, he worked in Paris. And he said, I can't believe that you came all the way from New Zealand just to ask if you should study chemistry or not. He said, you have to meet my boss. And the boss, Simrise, where I work it's still the same company. His name was Roger Smith. So I said to him, look, should I study chemistry or not? And he said, no, perfume is an art. What you should do is study the five senses in Milan. And basically, at the time, Simrise was sponsoring a school in Milan where you could study the five senses. And then it was kind of expensive and it basically wasn't going to happen. And he asked me, do you, more or less, do you have the money? And I said, no. And he said, well, you know what? I'll give you a scholarship. And then he said, "Oh, and by the way, the school starts in a month, or maybe it was 2 months, but it was quite close." So he said, "There's no point in going all the way back to New Zealand just to come back to Europe in a couple of months. So why don't you go to the Paris office and be an intern while awaiting the school to start?" And that was when I called my mom and I said, "Ah, well, I'm
I'm
not
not
coming
coming home.
back."
Wow. I mean, how lovely that these people took you under their wing and believed in you
Absolutely.
and gave you these opportunities. How amazing. So then I feel like I'm watching a Netflix documentary about your life already and we've only got to
Yeah.
Milan. So then describe then the next step in Milan. What happened then?
So the School of the Five Senses was actually called l'Università dell'Immagine. So it was founded in Milan by a fashion photographer, Fabrizio Fede, and then it was sponsored by Simrise. So of course I had to study the five senses, but I focused more on the olfactive side of things. But we had to study everything from photography to we had courses in Italian food for taste, of course. So we'd do olive oil tastings, coffee tastings, chocolate tastings.
Wow, what an amazing education.
And olive oil tasting is really crazy because they have these little, it's like shot glasses, but they're blue. Because
Into
when
olive
you
oil tastings in Italy.
right, well, so because you don't want to be influenced by the colors. So you can have so basically they're in these blue glasses. It was
Mm.
really, really incredible. And then so I did that for 2 years, and I was actually interning after school at the office in Milan doing evaluation. And so after 2 years, basically, I went to the office in Paris where I became a full-time trainee perfumer.
And was that what's the qualification you get then after being in Milan? Is it a specific qualification or is it like that's just where you go to get some training?
Right, like, that was I mean, it's a private school, and it's kind of,
Right.
I would say, almost an art school almost. So, I mean, I got a certificate, but I'm not sure it has any real, value from the Italian government. But, yeah, I mean, to be a perfumer, usually it's, an apprenticeship, so you do that
Yeah.
within one of the big
You
perfume
gotta learn on
houses.
the job.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
then you went to Brazil, so traveling so much.
Right, so, Brazil was a little bit later. So when I was in Paris, my mentor was Bernard Lena, so I was a trainee perfumer. But then there was a corporate merger which formed Simrise today.
And
So
what
they actually
just
stopped the
before you say what does a trainee do then? What were your kind of
so
roles?
basically, every morning I would be smelling all of the raw materials in the perfumer's palette.
Right.
So every morning, just smelling, 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 smelling all of the roses, all of the citrus oils, all of the woods. And
And are you
then at the end,
training your nose?
exactly, because you're
Yeah.
building up your olfactive memory. And then
Mm.
every Friday we'd have a test. So we'd have to smell everything blind. And that's when you had to say, okay, this is rose oil. But you couldn't just say rose oil. You had to say, was it French rose oil? Was it Turkish rose oil? And if you didn't get rose oils to the untrained nose can all smell quite similar. But if we didn't say Turkey, it was like, eh. So it was quite
Were you
stressful
loving
actually.
this at this point? Was this everything you kind of expected and hoped it would be?
But I mean, absolutely, because basically, you're smelling all day. So that will be in the morning when your nose is freshest.
Yeah,
And then in the afternoons, we would do 6 months in each department. So there's the marketing department, there's the laboratory, so there's the stability lab, and then the creation lab, and there's evaluation as well. So basically, the idea is that by the time you get to the end of your training, you've kind of seen and you've got an overall perspective of the whole business from every perspective.
from
So
smelling something to actually then marketing it as a product.
exactly.
Yeah,
And so I've been doing that for a year or two, but then they actually stopped the training program because there was a merger. And so I actually ended up working as an evaluator and then working in the lab, basically compounding the perfume's formulas. And so that's when I ended up starting to work for Maurice Roussel, who became another mentor of mine. So up until then, it was with Bernard Lena, which was amazing. And then working with Maurice as his lab tech basically it was almost like learning all over again. So that was just incredible. And at the time he was working on, Be Delicious, L'Instant de Guerlain. So of course I was in the lab actually
wow.
weighing his formulas and seeing how he was working and creating them. So that was like a whole nother uh, a whole nother education basically. And then after that, I ended up going to Germany for a year to kind of finish my training to get the title of perfumer. And after that, they said, well, Brazil is actually the biggest market in the world for perfume. A lot of people don't know that. And I mean, there's 200 million or more Brazilians who are crazy about fragrance.
Yeah, I heard
So,
that, you say in one of your interviews, it said that with Brazilian people, you said they shower so much and they have so many different fragrances, I guess maybe at different seasons, different times of the day, but they have a
right,
really
right.
different attitude to perfume than anyone else in the world, do you think?
I think perfume's cultural somehow. It has a lot to do with individual personality, but also culture. So I think Brazilians in general are kind of more expressive. They're
Yeah.
not afraid to stand out. They sing and dance in the streets. And I think that kind of when you look at the perfumes they like, it's that similar vibe. They're more likely to wear something outrageous than someone who's more conservative, let's say, in another country.
Yeah,
So,
they wanna be
and
seen
they're
and
vibrant, colorful, and yeah, again, curious, and they love perfume, so they're more likely to kind of experiment with new things. And yeah, so actually, I was supposed to go to Brazil for 6 months because it's such an important market. And then after a few months, I'd already asked the boss in Brazil, "Can I stay another 6 months?" And then I asked, "Can I stay another year?" And I ended up staying more than 10 years.
wow. So what
So it
did
was, yeah,
you
amazing.
when you were over there, you'd already gained your title. Can you remember the first fragrance? Were you in charge of actually producing your very own fragrance, or were you working as a team? How did it work?
Right, I mean, it depends on which country you're in. In Brazil, there's two really big companies, Natura and O Boticário. So basically, as a perfume supplier, Symrise is essentially making the fragrances for them.
Yeah.
So really busy. I mean, lots of work. And the other cool thing is that Maurice actually ended up coming to Brazil for 3 years as well. So we ended up creating fragrances together, which kind of completed the circle somehow. So yeah, I mean, in the 10 years, it was actually 12 years I was in Brazil, winning lots of big blockbuster fragrances where literally they're selling millions of bottles. So, you would walk down the street and you'd smell someone walking past wearing a fragrance you'd created. So that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And one of the things that you have been doing also is, you've been working with AI in fragrance. How does that work?
Right. So, Simrise, several years ago now, there's the kind of AI was starting to come on. So AI started to become bigger and bigger. So what happened is Simrise, we have a lot of expertise in perfumes, but we don't know anything about, let's say, technology. So we did a partnership with IBM, and basically, uh, the IBM team, which created Watson back in the day, we basically did a collab. So that we gave them access to our entire library of perfumes, and it went through and no, 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 no. So it's called Filera. It's IBM and Simrise, and then basically it allows us to create fragrances. Basically, it's self-taught. It's looked at all of the fragrances we have. There's millions of them in our system, and basically you can say, "Look, I like this fragrance and that fragrance. Can you do something in this world?" So, and then it gets a little bit more complicated. We have a dial, a creativity dial. So you can say, you can be uh, creativity 0 to 10. So 10, like it will do something outrageous, and 0 will do something very similar. So, I mean, this is the
Wow.
future, really.
Yeah, and are you happy about using that, or do you feel like it takes away the years of someone else's training? How do you feel about it?
Not necessarily. I mean, actually, we launched a fragrance now for a brand based in London called Neanderthal. And one of the fragrances is actually created 100% by AI, and the other one by humans. So we had this kind of competition who can create the best fragrance. But I'm not worried because you still need human interaction. Because
And
at the end of the day, when we ask Falira to create this fragrance, we still have to smell it and say,
yeah,
let's say we ask her to do 5 versions. So we're going to smell the 5 and say, oh, I prefer that one. And then
yeah.
we can ask her to do some more modifications. So it doesn't work in isolation. It needs humans just even to exist, basically. So it's not replacing humans. It's working with us, let's say.
Yeah, and I guess it's actually making sure that all those amazing fragrances that have been created over the years are not lost, and they're still influencing something in the future as well,
Right,
maybe?
right.
Yeah,
Right, and then again, as a perfumer, not only can we smell, but we can see what Falir has done actually in terms of the formulation. So we can actually, we didn't for the Neanderthal project because we wanted it to be really 100%. But in reality, on a day-to-day basis, you could actually go in and tweak things manually as well. So
yeah.
then it would be hybrid AI human.
And what about sustainability in fragrance? Because obviously, we're talking about future techniques with AI, but also in terms of sourcing ingredients, there's only so many flowers, or in certain areas, if something's really rare. How are you working in that side of things when you're creating fragrances as well?
Right. So I think, yeah, the AI for technical things, I think it's even better. So for example, every material we have in our palette has a percentage of carbon renewability. So you can actually ask, I mean, we can do it, any perfumer can do it, but you can actually ask the AI, give me a fragrance which is only done with renewable raw materials. So that basically means there's no petrochemical uh, origin to all of the ingredients. So for this kind of, let's say it's more technical, for this kind of thing, it's really relevant as well. And let's be honest, I think people are more and more interested about what goes into the things they're buying. So the more that consumers become aware and educated, the more kind of they want to know what's in the product, and they want to know that it's renewable. If
Yeah,
you have the choice between, if you have the choice between a plastic which is biodegradable and a plastic which is not biodegradable, who's not going to choose the one which is biodegradable? But you just have to be aware. So I
yeah,
think with perfumes, more and more people are aware that some of the ingredients, some of them, not so much today, but 20 years ago, there were almost like forever chemicals in the fragrances, but that's no longer the case, thanks to everyone being more aware.
yeah. And what do you say to people that don't want to wear perfume because they say that it interferes with hormones and because it's got alcohol in it? How do you address those kind of concerns?
Well, I think, yeah, again, maybe that could have been the case. Even, most fragrances these days are vegan as well.
Yeah,
So some people are saying, oh, I don't want to, but it's kind of doesn't make any sense. Today, at least with the legislation coming from Brussels, EFRA, we call it, the perfumes are perfectly safe. And of course, if you have an allergy to alcohol, just choose a perfume which is water based, or some people get worried about allergies and things. Look, if you have an allergic reaction to a food, what do you do? Well, you stop eating that
yeah,
particular
exactly. Find
food.
something else to eat. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly. And choose brands which are more natural, let's say.
Yeah, more ethical as well. And with the fragrance market as it is, it feels pretty saturated. How do you see the future of it also in terms of kind of, are there more gender neutral fragrances now? Because, gender is something we shouldn't be looking at as much. Do you think male and female, there's a difference in creating a certain fragrance? How do you see that future?
I think the whole gender question it's basically timeless. It doesn't, it's mostly an invention of marketing. I mean, you can have historical perfumes like Jiki from Guerlain or even Old Spice. It was originally supposed to be a feminine fragrance. It didn't go well, so they basically just relaunched it, saying it's a masculine now, and it was a huge success. So whether it's Jiki or Old Spice, they've actually been marketed at different times as masculine or feminine. There's the 90s unisex. Now it's ambigender, or basically it's just marketing. And yeah, at the moment, I think it's an exciting time in perfumery because there's so much diversity and variety, I think. So it's a great time actually for the world of perfumery, let's say.
Yeah, I think so too. What are some of the, you mentioned some of those like Old Spice, so what are some of the fragrances that you've loved over the years that you feel are real classics from your personal?
Wow, there's so many. Yeah, there's so many. I mean, it's hard. Yeah, real. I mean, in more recent times, you could say Baccarat Rouge or Light Blue. I mean, that was phenomenal.
Hmm.
And then, going back a little bit further, basically, it could be CK1, but every now and then there's a perfume that just blows up. Of course, more recently as well was the Santal 33 from Le Labo. It
Yeah,
felt like everybody was
everybody's
wearing it. But that was like CK1 back in the 90s. It was like,
yeah.
who didn't have CK1?
Yeah,
So,
I'm old enough for the CK1 market. I remember buying it in America as well, going to New York and buying it. Was so excited, and it was a really
right, right.
bottle, wasn't it? As well, it looked chic. It was really,
Yeah, yeah, totally.
yeah, amazing.
And but again, I think the perfume market, it kind of follows trends like the fashion brand,
Yeah,
like fashion market as well. So I think we're in a phase right now with these really strong kind of Arabian perfumes, and then that becomes so big that there's something that pushes back against it, and then you go into another phase where you might go back to the CK1s, or I think the CK1 was kind of response to the overly heavy fragrances of the 80s, early 90s. Nobody wanted to smell like Poison anymore. Yeah. Or like Giorgio Beverly Hills. So it's kind of a pushback. So I think, yeah, going from feminine to masculine to unisex, all of these kind of things, it's almost cyclic. It's a kind of fashion trend thing, and things do the circle. Like at the moment, we're seeing a lot more white florals, which weren't popular for many years, and now they're coming back. So it's like the bell bottoms that are back in fashion.
yeah, exactly. It's like drain pipes or flares, exactly. How old do I sound by saying the word drain pipe? So at the moment, what would you say the current trends are then? You say white florals. If money was no object and someone said, just create me a fragrance for now that really encapsulate, is kind of the time we're in, what would you make? What kind of smells? What would be your base and top notes in there?
Well, I mean, if you wanted to be in the kind of zeitgeist of the
Yeah,
moment, I would do it.
kind of smell.
Yeah, a huge ambery white floral, probably. So it's a little bit throwback retro because of the white floral, but then these ambery ingredients, they didn't exist in the 80s. So that's kind of it's novel because you're looking at something you've seen before, but in a different context.
Yeah,
So,
I love
and then
them.
if price is not an issue, which is a great,
That's your brief,
circumstance to be
Isaac,
in,
for
a
me,
great
yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Then you're using the natural floral absolute. So orange blossom absolute, neroli absolute, jasmine sambac, Egyptian jasmine, and then yeah, those we're talking 10,000 euros a kilo.
Wow.
Uh, it would be expensive.
I did say money was no object. How do you, when you've got a brief from a client, how is that process sometimes? I mean, obviously, there is gonna be a commercial side of it, so there are gonna be restrictions on costs. How do you work with a client from sort of brief to try and maybe if someone comes to you and you think that's just not possible, obviously, you've had so much experience now. Do you feel like the client comes to you and says, "I wanna create something, give me your ideas," or do they come to you with something and go, "I want something like this"?
Right. I mean, there's kind of no rules. Yeah. Often a customer wants you to come with kind of ready ideas which you're already ready to launch. And other times, like with Agnes B, we literally created it from zero together. So with Agnes B, we're looking at a year and a half, meeting every month or two and really starting something from scratch. That's a real creation. But again, other times people, they might say, look, we need to launch this in 6 months, and they want something which is going to be ready, and they're going to want to do a test in 3 continents, and they want it to test better against, the best testers, which could be, Le Viabel or something. So it really, there's no rules. It just depends on who the customer is, and it depends on the project.
What the project is, yeah. And just to sort of wrap up, God, it's been such a great conversation. Thank you. The smells you sort of grew up, and the smells that made you want to get into the fragrance industry were natural smells. You said about ginger flowers, and your mum had a great garden. When do you find that there's always smells that are your kind of in your back pocket that are your favorite, that evoke sort of memories? Because the it's smells, they say the smell of something is
Right.
actually the memory that goes furthest back, isn't it? It
Right. Right.
reminds you.
Absolutely.
And so, what is some of your sort of favorite smells that you would always like to try and bring into a fragrance that aren't necessarily a flower? They might be the rain or the grass or something. What are some of your favorite smells?
Well, that's a really interesting question. Actually, it's funny, just coming back to the other story, Roger Smith, who gave me the scholarship to study in Milan, I asked him many years later, why did you do that? This crazy thing. You just met me. And he said, well, because you're from New Zealand, he thought maybe I'd have a different perspective. And I thought about it. And it's true, because if you grow up in Europe, or especially in France, where a lot of perfumers are from, it's lavender in the south of France, it's the orange blossom. And again, in my perfumes, I really do like the kind of childhood memories of the ginger blossom. And yeah, a lot of people don't know this, but Auckland's actually subtropical. So all of those spring flowers, I didn't know. I've never smelled, before coming to Europe, I'd never smelled lily of the valley. I'd never smelled lilac. I'd never smelled hyacinth. These are
Uh,
all flowers that only grow when you have a cold winter. So for me coming, it was like discovery, wow, this is lily of the valley. And so for me, when I think my creations definitely linked to kind of growing up in New Zealand and the smells, and also the ambery notes. When you go into the bush, well, it's actually subtropical rainforest, but we call it the bush. It's got this really deep, earthy, ambery smell. And I spent years trying to figure out what it was. And even like the freshwater streams have this smell. And in the end, I discovered it's actually the tree ferns. The trunk of the tree ferns have this really, really strong amber smell. And I love putting in all of my perfumes now. So that kind of dry, ambery, earthy background, kind of moving, it's somewhere in between patchouli and amber, let's say. So that's something I really like to kind of put a little bit in each creation.
and what fragrance are you wearing today? Do you
Actually,
wear
nothing,
fragrance? I was gonna
nothing.
say,
Well,
how do you
yeah.
how do you wear your
It,
fragrance at night and not at
yeah,
work?
in the evenings, if I'm working on something just to see how it behaves on skin, or in the weekends. But generally in the morning, I don't put perfume on because it interferes. Imagine I put on a big amber fragrance and then I'm working on a delicate floral for someone at work. And it just, it's a cacophony, let's say. So I always, at least when I'm going to the office, I always try to be neutral. So
And
no strong fabric softeners and all these things.
do you find when you enter a restaurant or a room that you instantly are kind of like naming people's fragrances that they're wearing? Is your nose just like you just can't help it?
Absolutely. I mean, I think more so, 10 or 20 years ago, because basically you would know every perfume on the market. But now there's so much diversity, there's so many different brands with so many different perfumes that it's actually harder to pinpoint which is which. But of course, I mean, as a perfumer, even if you don't know which brand it is, you know what it is and what makes it smell that way. So
Yeah,
yes, always switched on,
always,
smelling.
always. Oh, amazing. And so just what's the future for you rather? Are you staying in France now? Do you have another country that you're about to go to? How's the next few years looking for you?
Right, right. So I came back to Paris about 2.5 years ago now. So for me, yeah, it was fun being in Brazil, but it's weird, but it feels like coming home, because after New Zealand, Paris is kind of where I feel most at home, let's say. So yeah, no, I think just stay in Paris for at least the short term future.
Yeah, one of the questions I was going to ask you actually is that when you came to France and to Paris as that sort of like the younger you, Did you feel like because fragrance sort of seemed to just be this passion for you, do you feel like it is your kind of spiritual home in a way? Does Paris and
Right.
France?
Right. Absolutely. And because, I mean, I was only 19, and yeah, I think that those are kind of the formative years, let's say. So really, after Auckland, I would say Paris is home.
Yeah. Do you go home much or not?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I try to
No.
get back every year, but going for Christmas now, but usually it's every, yeah, let's say during COVID, I didn't go for 5 years because they just closed the whole country down.
Cinda was pretty smart on her island
Yeah,
for
yeah,
yeah. Okay, well, listen, thanks so much. It's been such an
yeah,
interesting conversation, and thank you for the beautiful perfume. Gary sent it over to me, so that's become my new favorite actually at the moment, the
yeah,
Agnes
yeah,
B one. So, and good
yeah,
luck with the rest of your career. I will follow it and see where it takes you. Thank you.
yeah. Thank you.